We're going to go straight on because he got a golden buzzer from Simon Cowell in his audition and then another one from Amanda Holden during Saturday night's semi-finals, which means that singer Matty J is heading to the Britain's Got Talent final.
He stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage in Blackpool on an ordinary spring evening, wearing the kind of quiet nervousness that comes from having already lost in public once before. Nobody in that audience knew his name. Simon Cowell didn't know his name, but by the time the lights came up and the music faded, the entire room was on its feet, and a golden buzzer had just changed the course of a career that had already been rebuilt from nothing at least twice. This is the real story of Matty Juniosa, not the 4-minute version that aired on television, but the years underneath it. Matty Juniosa grew up in Mandaluyong City in the Philippines, one of countless kids across the country who spent their childhoods glued to televised singing competitions, watching contestants chase a single golden moment that could change their lives overnight. Like so many Filipino performers of his generation, he grew up on a steady diet of the very same talent show formats he would eventually chase for himself on the other side of the world: American Idol, The X Factor, and Britain's Got Talent among them. Singing wasn't a hobby that arrived later in life for him. It was simply part of how he moved through the world, long before there was ever a stage big enough to test it. By the time he was old enough to audition for a national television competition, the ambition wasn't abstract anymore. It was something he had been quietly building toward for years. In 2019, Matty auditioned for the very first season of Idol Philippines, one of the country's biggest platforms for aspiring singers, with a judging panel that included industry heavyweights like Regine Velasquez and Moira de la Torre. He made it through to the top 12, a genuine achievement in a country where thousands audition and only a handful ever make it that far. But the show didn't end kindly for him. He didn't win. He didn't even make it deep into the live rounds. He was among the first eliminated from the top 12, a moment in his life when music felt like the only thing he had fully committed to. For a lot of performers, that kind of early, public elimination is the end of the story. It's the point where the dream quietly gets shelved and real life takes over. That isn't what happened to Matty. Instead, something unusual occurred. The same show that eliminated him became the reason his career kept moving forward at all. Not long after his elimination, Matty was brought back by producers and grouped with two fellow Idol Philippines alumni, Lucas Garcia and Enzo Almerio, to form a new vocal trio called Idols. It was the kind of second chance that rarely gets handed to someone who has just been voted off national television, and the three of them made the most of it. The group performed together for roughly 3 years, appearing across Philippine television and even competing on Your Face Sounds Familiar Season 3, where they finished 4th overall as a group. It wasn't a Cinderella ending, but it was real, sustained work, the kind that slowly builds a following, a body of performances, and a sense that maybe the Idol Philippines elimination hadn't been the final word after all. Then, in 2022, after roughly 3 years together, Idols disbanded. Matty was moving on to something else entirely, something that had nothing to do with staying in the Philippines, and everything to do with starting over from zero in a country where nobody knew his name. Matty relocated to the United Kingdom to pursue further studies, settling in Glasgow, Scotland. His decision to leave the Philippines was shaped partly by the disruption of the COVID-19 pandemic and partly by the broader political climate at home during that period. Reasons that, in his own account, made starting fresh somewhere else feel like the right move rather than a retreat. Life in Glasgow wasn't glamorous. To support himself while pursuing his studies, Matty worked part-time as a waiter, a detail that would later follow him into headline after headline once the world discovered who he was. For 3 years, that was his rhythm: coursework and stage training by day, restaurant shifts to keep the lights on, in a city that had nothing to do with the version of himself that Filipino television audiences remembered from a few years earlier. It would have been easy, at that point, to let the singing career quietly become a thing of the past. Instead, Matty kept his sights on one more shot, this time on the other side of the world, on a stage even bigger than the one that had eliminated him the first time. When Matty decided to audition for Britain's Got Talent, he didn't treat it as a long shot to be left to chance. He treated it like something worth actually preparing for, strategically. rather than picking a song purely because he liked singing it. He chose Prince's Purple Rain specifically because he had learned, through his own research into the show and its judges, that it was a song Simon Cowell had publicly named as one of his personal favorites. It was a calculated decision, a technically demanding, emotionally weighty song aimed directly at the one judge whose reaction could change everything. The audition aired on the March 28, 2026 episode of Britain's Got Talent, Season 19. Before he sang a note, Matty spoke plainly to the judges about the doubt he'd been carrying, that after years of competitions, he had started to wonder whether he was simply destined to be the one who came up short every time. It wasn't a rehearsed sob story. It was closer to a confession from a performer who had lived through exactly that outcome once already, on national television, in front of an entire country. Then he sang, and by the end of Purple Rain, the reaction in the room made it clear that something had shifted. KSI told him that the moment he took the microphone off its stand, he transformed into a completely different performer. Simon Cowell, visibly moved, called it one of the biggest reactions the judges had had from anyone that season, before slamming his hand down on the golden buzzer and sending Matty straight through to the semifinals, gold confetti falling around him as he stood there in visible disbelief. Afterward, Matty took to social media to share his reaction, describing how surreal it felt to have grown up watching the show, crediting Susan Boyle's iconic audition as one of his early inspirations, and now finding himself given the very same opportunity to compete on it. Advancing from a golden buzzer audition to the live semifinals came with its own pressures. Based in Glasgow, while the show's logistics were centered in London, Matty had to juggle long-distance rehearsals, video calls, and last-minute travel just to prepare properly, on top of the ordinary weight of following up a viral audition with a performance good enough to justify it. He answered that pressure with a complete change of direction. For the semi-final broadcast on April 25, 2026, April 26th in the Philippines, Matty performed Aerosmith's Dream On, backed by a gospel choir, trading the hushed vulnerability of his audition for something far bigger and more powerful. The response was, if anything, even stronger than before. Alicia Dixon called the performance a masterclass, remarking on how effortlessly his vocals seemed to come to him. As the crowd began chanting for Amanda Holden to hit her golden buzzer, she obliged, sending Matty directly through to the final, bypassing the results show entirely. That moment made Matty just the fourth act in the show's history to receive 2 golden buzzers in a single season, joining a very short list of past acts who had managed the same feat. For a singer who had been voted off the bottom of a top 12 just a few years earlier, it was an almost unbelievable turn. 2 of Britain's toughest judges independently deciding that his talent was too undeniable to make him wait his turn. Even before the grand final aired, Matty's momentum carried him somewhere else entirely. A reported role in the West End production of Jesus Christ Superstar, playing the part of Annas. It wasn't the leading role, but for a performer who had spent years waiting tables between conservatoire classes, it represented exactly the kind of foothold in professional musical theater that his years in Glasgow had been quietly built toward. Back home in the Philippines, his run on Britain's Got Talent was received as something bigger than one man's personal comeback. Commentators drew comparisons to other Filipino singers who had recently found international success on Western talent competitions, framing Matty's journey as part of a broader moment for Filipino vocalists on the world stage. What makes Matty Juniosa's story land differently from a usual overnight success narrative is that there wasn't actually anything overnight about it. He was eliminated first from a major national competition. He rebuilt a career in a disbanded trio. He left the country, and the identity that came with it, to start again from nothing in a city where no one recognized him. He waited tables for years while training for a stage he wasn't guaranteed to ever stand on. And when the chance finally came, he didn't leave it to luck. He studied the panel, understood exactly what might move them, and delivered it anyway, twice, when it mattered most. So the real question isn't really how he got here. It's how far a story like this, one built entirely on getting back up, is capable of going next.